Merry Christmas and good evening. My name is Ramzi Dalloo. I'm here near Washington, D.C., spending Christmas with my family. If I may, let me introduce you to my family. My daughters, Annette, Michelle, my son-in-law, David, my daughter's mom, Jeanette, and my grandchildren, Xavier, Marina, and Matthew. My whole family is helping me do this wonderful traditional Christmas pastry, and we are dedicating it to Mr. Obama and his family, Mrs. Obama, Sasha, Malia, and Bo. First, Mr. President, we would like to congratulate you on your re-election. Myself and my daughter Annette we volunteered for your campaign both in 2008 and 2012. And we are extremely happy that our hard work has paid off. So let's get started with making every American's life better. Yes, including the Republicans, but not tax cuts for the rich. Mr. President, I was privileged to meet you several times since 2005, many times in 2008 in Michigan. And I always try to bring two issues to your attention. One, as a chairman and founder of the Chaldean Democratic Caucus, the plight of the only indigenous people of Iraq, the Chaldeans and Assyrians, was front and center. The second issue, public financing of campaign, which I urge you to support. 4 years later, Mr. President, the first issue is moot at this point, thanks to our country's illegal invasion of Iraq and installing Shiite dictatorships. The Chaldeans, Assyrians, and most Christians have all but vanished from Iraq. The second issue, the campaign financing issue, is no longer, in my opinion, good enough issue to support, because I think if we do not take the money out of politics completely, this 2.5 century American experience will fail. Mr. President, I lived under dictatorships all my young life, and I don't want to have my adopted country be controlled by a corporate dictatorship. This recipe, which I'm about to make, has been in my family for many years and in Chaldean families for countless generations. As a young boy growing up in Baghdad, what? Okay. I see that you want to take a shot at this, but I will say it. When the dinosaurs were still around. Anyway, my sister, my siblings and I waited for Christmas impatiently, not because we knew we were going to have any Christmas presents. We never had any Christmas presents. I don't know why. We were adorable children. But the consolation prize was my sister and my mother before her was to make Christmas cookies and baklawa, and that would be the last time we would have any sweets until the following Christmas. Mr. President, I guarantee that you and your family make this once, it will not be the last time you make it. The name of this recipe is baklawa. The Greeks want to call it baklava. I don't know where they got that name from. I think the Chaldeans and Babylonians taught the Greeks everything they know, but we never taught them to say baklava. I kid the Greeks. They're great people. They did a great job on Socrates, not so good on baklawa. They included in the recipe we gave them honey, which is too sweet, gooey, and messy. Instead of using just sugar and water and a couple of spice ingredients that would make it very light and less sweet. Enough politics. Let's get to the recipe, which is why we are here. First, the ingredients. We need 2 boxes of phyllo dough, and I will talk about that a little bit later. 4 cups of sugar, and you can either use white sugar or raw sugar like my daughter Michelle would prefer. 2.5 pounds to 3 pounds of walnut, chopped walnuts. 1 pound of unsalted butter. And 2 more wonderful ingredients. Bottle of rose water, or 4 tablespoons of rose water, and a lot of roses dyed for this bottle. And the last item is what we call it in English cardamom. In our language, it's called hail. It's pronounced like hail to the chief. Now, in my opinion, when you combine these 2 ingredients, the rose water and the hail, the fragrance and taste is more pleasurable than, let's see, well, let me put it this way. If you remember your first love and first kiss, this is better. But some of my young friends tell me, what do I know, I'm old. Now, we need to talk about the utensils you need to make this happen. We need a baking tray that is about 13 to 14 by 38 or 40 deep. You need a 2-quart saucepan to make your syrup with, which we had made already ahead of time to save time. We need another saucepan to melt 3 sticks of butter, which again we already did, and we got it ready. You need a food brush, measuring cups, a plastic glove for mixing. I already wore the apron to make myself an official chef. I don't have a chef hat, but I do have this cap to protect my few hairs that are left from falling into the food. And I know you will say there are so few, why worry about it? Because they are very dear to me. I've named every single one of them after my family and friends. And I don't want any of them to fall into the food. So there you go. So by this time, we're going to start putting this thing together. By this time, I'm sure you've read the directions as to how to either take this out of the freezer and put it in the refrigerator for 72 hours and then out in room temperature for a couple of hours, which we already did that. And you take it out of the box. The first thing you do, and we're going to start this in about 1 minute, but before that, we talked about the chopped walnuts. Now, with the chopped walnuts, you need to mix 1 tablespoon of hail or cardamom, you need 2 tablespoons of rose water, Now you mix this well so that the cardamom and the rose water would mix with this. And we also need, and I shouldn't have put the glove on before I put the sugar, we need 1 cup of sugar to go in the walnuts. Now you mix the whole thing together. Okay, that's ready, so we can set it aside for now. So we open the first box of phyllo dough, and I'll show you how, if you haven't seen it before, I'll show you how thin these sheets are. So you see the sheet of phyllo dough, how thin it is? Now my family in Iraq, they didn't have wonderful companies like these to make phyllo dough, put them in a box, and we'd be ready for you to use. And they only cost $3. Yeah, they used to make each sheet of this by hand, so it would take them days to make baklawa. Now anybody can make baklawa, even myself, because everything comes ready to make. So what we did, first step, is we buttered the whole bottom of the tray, the sides, everything. So we take the phyllo dough, and usually they used to just butter every sheet. But what I do to save on using too much butter, I take every 3 or 4 sheets and I put them in the tray. And after we straighten everything out, we just kind of, you can, if they are oversized, you can fold them, and that wouldn't matter. Just fold them down, and then you just butter the top sheet. And you don't have to saturate it, just spots. It's good. It's good. Okay, I'm going to recap what we did so far. You saw us starting the phyllo dough sheets and buttering them. We finished the first box, which is really 20 sheets of phyllo dough. And then after we finished the first box, you put the nut mixture on top evenly. And then we'll start with the second box of phyllo dough. And again, we're going to repeat the same process. We're going to butter every 3-4 sheets. However, it's very important that we do not butter the very last sheet. And I'll tell you why later. But I will also go back to tell you something that I did not mention, which is about the syrup, how to make it. In a saucepan, you put 3 cups of sugar and 5 cups of water, 1 tablespoon of cardamom and 2 tablespoons of rose water. Let it come to a boil, and then once it comes to a boil, turn it down to simmer and let it simmer for at least half hour or more until you see it is a little bit like a light syrup consistency. And then you shut it off and let it cool down. So now we're going to start with the second box, and we'll come back to you and tell you the rest of it. We said we laid the first box on the bottom of this tray. Then we put the walnut mixture on after the first box was laid. Now we put the phyllo dough, the second box of phyllo dough, on top of the mixture. However, we did not butter the last sheet, and I'll show you why. Because when you go to cut the sheets, you don't want the butter to stick to your hands. So now that we're done with putting the phyllo dough on the tray, the next step is important. I take a cleaver. You can take a sharp knife, but it's a little bit harder to cut with a knife than a cleaver, because with the cleaver I can go like this and push down and then continue like this. And the first line is diagonal from corner to corner. And then separated by at least 1.5 inches, you go on each side of the first cut all the way to the other side of the tray. Now that we cut the whole sheet diagonally, you come to the width of the tray and start at the top and go with a straight line perpendicular to the first line that we made. And see, that's how you get your diamond cut. Now we have this leftover melted butter, and we melted the fourth stick of butter. And this would be the last step before we put the whole thing in the oven. So I'm going to try to go evenly like this to spread it over the tray. So I just go back and forth. Okay, now that we are done spreading the butter, we preheat the oven for 350 degrees and put this in for 35 minutes. We put the tray, if you remember, in the oven for 350 degrees for 35 minutes, and it should look like this, light golden color. The important thing is you want to have this tray cool down completely before you start putting the syrup on top. That way the baklava will remain crispy and not soggy on the bottom. So that's very important to note. And you're done. You can have as many pieces as you want, but not too many to make you fat. That's all there is to making baklava. It's really very simple. One person can do it in 2 hours from start to finish. If you have 2 people making it, it'll probably take less than an hour and a half. And just enjoy. Make it whenever you want. And from my family to yours, Merry Christmas and have a wonderful New Year.